Hey, welcome to another week of the Black Men's Roundtable. We are running a little late today because we had our regular monthly meeting, and it ran a little bit over. As you can imagine, with election week, we had a lot of discussion that we didn't thought we was going to have. So, without further ado, we're going to begin this episode of the Black Men's Roundtable. And once again, I am your host and co-moderator, Rodney Butler, and I will throw it over. We're going to do our introductions, and I will throw it over to our co-moderator, Maurice Hurry.
Good morning, I'm Maurice Hurry. I am the vice chair. That is sitting around this table today about what
Friar Appraisals Incorporated. And I'm also a member Kappa Alpha Psi.
My re-election now, so thank you. This will be my fourth term at the
I'm Kevin Evans, and I'm on the Board of Elections, my second term, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Alan.
Alan Nottingham, District 3, post seat holder, Chair of the Finance Committee, Douglas County.
Great. Let's give our panel a round of applause. Today, as I alluded to, we're going to be discussing, we're going to be doing some analytics, but also some opinions about the election this past week. We're going to be talking national, we're going to be talking statewide, and we're going to be talking county, primarily spending a lot more time on state and county as we discuss our topics today. But before we do, gentlemen, I just want to point out a few. I got all these numbers and statistics, and so I want to point out a few things that kind of stood out before we get started. When we look at the national election, of course, there was not this red wave that everybody thought it was going to be, but there were a couple of states that that there was a red wave, if you want to call it that, and particularly Florida and Georgia wasn't too good. So we're just going to keep it real. I thought that was interesting because all of the Republicans who ran statewide, they did get over 2 million votes, and actually the Republican that ran statewide that got the most votes, even more than Brian Kemp, was the Alicia Thomas. The Richard Woods, the Secretary of Education, and stuff about CRT and all that stuff. But that was an interesting thing. But also in Douglas County, one of the things that I thought stood out was that for the early voting, Douglas County doubled. The Democrats doubled what the Republicans did in the early voting. But then in the same day voting, it was much closer. But the Democrats pretty much still swamped the Republicans on even the same day voting in Douglas County. So I just want to point out, those couple of nitbits before we get into it.
And if you don't mind, Rodney, the statistics from the previous 2018 election, when it came down to early voting, it was about 56%. But this time around for early voting, increased the numbers to about 63%. So you find that we had a lot more people getting out for early voting this time around. And that was a great thing, but it just didn't happen that well when it came down to the day of elections.
And I'm glad Maurice brought that in because, like I said, we're going to be doing some analytics and we're going to be doing some opinions. So with that, gentlemen, we're going to open it with the first discussion. But I also want you to know, if you are in Douglas County or Metro Atlanta, look, come on down to St. Julian's Episcopal Church in Douglasville, because look, we got breakfast, we still got food, so there's no excuse for you not to come out. So I want to make sure you understand that. We got a nice audience and we're glad they're here, but we can definitely want more. And so we got got food and we got refreshments for you. So with that, our first topic is the national elections. And basically, gentlemen, just get in where you fit in. Here's the deal. What's your opinion on the national elections?
I'll jump in first.
Go ahead.
Regarding the national elections, there was not a red suit. He's already done the last couple of years. I want that to continue going forward. But overall, it was not a red tsunami. I don't want to turn over the House to the Republicans. I don't want to turn anything over to the Republicans right now. But it was not the red tsunami that they thought it would be.
Yes, and we will be getting into the state. We will do Warnock separately because he's still running.
That's
So, and yeah.
But that tsunami didn't take place. I would totally agree. And so I think now when you kind of look at those that Trump supported, then he kind of didn't come in or didn't get what he thought he was going to get out of all of this. Right. So in that vein, I think we did exceptionally well. When you compare some prior elections, some gubernatorial elections during that time frame, you'll see that the numbers didn't match up to what he anticipated and the Republicans anticipated. So I think in that vein, we did well. We did exceptionally well.
Nationally, a referendum was basically on Donald Trump. Now, throughout the world, there is radical behavior. And it proves that there are still an unbalanced situation in the United States where radicals are concerned. But America has advanced educationally among its minorities. And as a result of that, while the media was demonstrating this tsunami, I couldn't see why educated people would not overcome radicals. And this election demonstrated that our democracy was on the air, which was not really in the media. It's only lately people start talking about this democracy. And that has been something that should have been addressed earlier on. We see the Supreme Court situation, and when we look at the Supreme Court situation and realizing what is happening and seeing the radicals that was put on the ballot, we had to overcome that. And I see the American people has successfully overcome that, while the media and all the radicals thought they had the upper hand. This election proved that our democracy is strong, and education is the key to success and not radicalism.
You know, Alan, you made a great point.
I agree with that. I totally agree.
Alan, you made a great point about the Supreme Court had its hand in this election. Huffington Post wrote a great article about it, basically saying, hey, the Supreme Court has definitely had its hand in making sure this election cycle was changed. And reason being, they didn't rule, or they ruled that, hey, let the states handle those redistricting.
Correct.
Well, the states handled the redistricting and making it in favor of the Republicans, not making it fair across the board. You know, and so those are things that this current Supreme Court didn't do its job on, in my opinion, and needs to really look at how do we rectify that going forward.
Everything good? Okay, look, well, before we close that out, I would just say that this election was definitely a referendum on Donald Trump. And I, for one, am just glad that I believe that he's probably going to just disappear, you know, back into the shadows from whence he came.
No. That's hopeful.
That's hopeful. And
His pride is in the way. He won't ever step back like that.
That's it.
yeah, he won't step back. That's why I said I think he's going to be forced. If I didn't say it, I meant to say forced into the shadows, hopefully. But also, you know, it showed that democracy was on the ballot, because I think that's why the polls were so, you know, wrong. And I guess some of the polls are right, but who cares about polls? But at the end of the day, that's what I just think that American people came together, you know, like Alan kind of talked about. And so I think that's what happened also at the national level. All right, Maurice?
You know, Ben, we started to talk a little bit about states. So let's look at the state side of the elections. And mind you, let's not look at Reverend Warnock and Herschel Walker right now. The reason being is there's a runoff that's going to take
Right.
place here.
And we're
So-
going to talk about that a little bit more in
Yeah,
depth.
yeah, and we'll talk about that more in depth later. So guys, what's your thoughts on state election? How do you feel about it?
Well, chicken here, first of all. You're talking about Abrams, the governorship. Again, radicalism is a thing that is bought. But education and reasoning could always overcome that and was always proven to be successful. The governor has the upper hand in the first place because of the fact he's the incumbent. He has the tools more than the challenger. And as a result, we have seen where the governor had $23 billion in excess in the budget, which is money from the federal government that was supposed to be given to unemployment during the pandemic.
Talk about it.
He held that money back
Yes.
so that he can give it and buy his votes, just as we talk about radicalism. It's bought. There's no reasoning in it. And he had the upper hand as a result of what he has done. Teachers got a little extra money. The gas situation.
Yes.
He did not increase, he cut back on the taxes. He did these things to buy the people. After this election, our gas tax will be back to its normal, and it will be competitive with the other states. The unemployment that the people didn't get, that they deserved, didn't get it, he used that money for other purposes. So radicalism overcome the fact that Stacey ran a very good campaign. I can't say she didn't. She was all over the state, person to person. She's been in Douglas County, I think, on 2 occasions, which is very unusual. And with all of what we did, yes, education to the issue and the challenge that we did not face democracy here in Douglas County. People take things for granted. And we don't want to go to war knockers yet, but I will get there when that comes.
Understand. Anybody else? Any other thoughts?
I'll just echo, excuse me, just echo what he said. The only thing I would take issue with is the term radicalism. The only reason why is because I would just call it what it is: right-wing, far right-wing conservatism.
I call it like it.
So you know, radicalism just really means you're against the norm, you're against the status quo, and that can be a good thing. But in terms of the local elections or the state elections, I'm disappointed because there were other candidates statewide that ran that I absolutely believe would have been good for Georgia. When you have election deniers that have won positions of power where they can have their hands meddling in elections going forward, that's dangerous for the state of Georgia. That is very dangerous. So that part has definitely disappointed me. To see that some people went with that and knowing what their views are concerning election integrity, as well as women's reproductive rights. And I just, again, seeing that they won does not sit well with me at all for the state of Georgia, and especially in the governorship, as he mentioned. You know, I think there are bigger things on the plate for Stacey Abrams that she will still be around to do and help contribute for the Democratic Party.
So could we say also that maybe it was the new norm now of voting, meaning the removal of the various voting ballot boxes? I mean, could that have played a major role?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
A major role in this?
That's
Because
a part of it, too.
because I would say that, you know, during that time when we had that opportunity to kind of get your ballots, drop them off, do all those kind of things, it was easier and convenient for those that would go out and vote. Now, I think we had this conversation earlier about the numbers were down on both sides, Republican and Democrat, based on that. However, but I think that to me had a play in all of this as to why we see the numbers of what we are today. But still, that shouldn't have stopped us
Right.
as a people going to the polls and voting, because I just think It's our duties and responsibilities to make sure that we get to the polls and do our do call and make sure our voices are heard. And if we don't, I can't blame the right wing. I can't blame the left wing. I blame us as a people that we should, we, even though they made it up, they put the obstacles in play. They
Right.
put the obstacles in play to stop us or try to slow us down and maneuver, and they did. They hurt themselves as well. Sure. But at the same time, it shouldn't have been. It shouldn't have hurt us in that whole vein, because we still should have made it to the polls and did our due diligence.
True.
What you'll find that is SB 202 had a lot of impact on this election compared to, let's say, 2018. So let's, looking at, gubernatorial or governor versus governor type elections. With SB 202 being active during this election cycle, lack of better words, it did its job.
Absolutely.
It scared people off. It made people not have the options to vote in the ways they found in 2018. And this is convenient. I can go to a drop box, drop my ballot in.
Keep it moving.
In the state of Georgia, I don't recall hearing any throw it up and say, hey, we had all these issues here. We didn't have those type of. Second of all is it scared off a lot of because it allowed folks that may have said, you know what, my daughter, my niece, my nephew, whoever, drop it off. Now I don't have the options like I used to have. So
Yeah, I think SB 202 is it's the same thing it was then as it is now. It is a solution looking for a problem. Point blank.
solution looking for a problem. Yeah.
All right. Well, look, before we move on to the county elections, we're gonna see if we have any questions from the audience.
So,
You have one there? I guess this is,
What about it? Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
that's your mic.
so, we do have some questions from the audience. Actually, one of the questions is from the last Black Men's Roundtable.
Okay.
And, because the person didn't get a chance to ask it. So we have Mickey Medina who wants to ask a question about, hold on, let me bring about the Second Amendment. Okay, I'm gonna bring this microphone to you. Okay. Just leave it right there.
All right. The Second Amendment also, the Herschel Walker predicament. I listen to everything, but I also listen to WALK. A lot of men called it that are sports fans, and they don't see anything else. That he deserves a chance to be a senator because he can throw a football. Okay, and I mean, that's shameful. Second Amendment. Me and Ingrid and a few people, we were out there when Kemp signed. We were on the steps of the tag office when Kemp was a few doors down signing the thing for the Second Amendment, the guns.
Open carry law.
And I've heard some of our men, which is men of my race, praise that opportunity to carry a gun. You think that applies to us? Try it. Get stopped, and you got a piece on your seat next to you. Right. And one of the law enforcement officers asks you, do you have anything to hide or anything? And you trying to show him your piece, and he said, and before you know it, you are gone because he was trying to defend his life. He thought that you was going for that piece.
Right.
Better think about it. I have a license. I've had a renewal 3 times. I've got guns. I've show that I have a right to carry, just because of the color of my skin. Come on now, you better think. Yeah, it's nice to have that, that pass of gun. Oh, we at the Second Amendment, we can carry our guns. Think about that.
So just to be clear, what exactly is your question? Or
Are you
concern?
gonna have? You think that we're gonna have a chance to say that embellish that we are enjoying the Second Amendment by
Well,
having a right to carry because the governor signed for it?
well, since that question was from the last Black Men's Roundtable, kind of sort of.
Yeah,
we
but it
talked
never
about
got. I
But-
didn't hear it.
Right. But what I would tell you is that I don't know if you saw the show, but around that table, I think that every black man either owned a gun or many guns or
License to
license to
carry.
carry.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that we should not allow for fear to infringe on our rights. So therefore, if I have a license to carry, and so therefore, and I'm black, right? I'm a black man, and I'm not going to allow for fear to stop me from my Second Amendment, and none of those men at that table, okay?
Area of the Fifth Circuit Court, I think it was the Seventh Circuit Court. Anyway, from Rome. And he, of course, never ruled on the actual law. What he said was that the Board of Elections should have thrown her off. Or no, should have voted one way or the other. Well, the Board of Elections did not vote on it because there was a motion on the floor. There was never a second. So they followed Robert's Rules of Order, so they never voted on it. One way or the other, she got thrown off. Then there was a law, and I can't remember the OCGA number right now, but we looked at it and said, well, okay, well, we can, based on this, as the, huh? I think it's 307. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. Anyway, at 21 something. Anyway, at this point, we said, here are the rules. Let's follow these rules on appointing a nominee based on the fact that we are the ruling part. We are the party that has that opportunity. We did. We appointed. Ryan said he would do it. We talked to him. He said he would do it. He stood up. He became the nominee from the Democratic Party. We had the authority. We are a certified legal arm of the Democratic Party of Georgia. And we followed those rules. We had 24, 48, whatever it was, Maurice, hours to make a nominee, appoint a nominee. We did. They decided that, oh no, you can't do that because you're not certified. Well, sorry, our certification letter, it was filed in February from the state party. We have been certified for years with the state party, so we can't do that. The party sent their attorney to the hearing that they had before the Board of Elections and said, yeah, they're the party. That's it. They can do that. We did it. Moved forward. The camps decided to take it to the Superior Court. Superior Court ruled on it and said, we can't really do it, but we would advise you to, push. Anyway, it ended up at the Supreme Court, the Georgia Supreme Court. That's where it ended up. Some judge on the Georgia Supreme Court made a statement that, the rule doesn't seem like the law is clear. The rule is clear. Well, it was clear to us. It was clear to everybody. It was clear to the Secretary of State's office. They agreed with the Board of Elections. So, to make a long story short, the Supreme Court, said that they were going to clear, since we didn't seem to have a good understanding of the law, they would clear it up for us. They didn't clear it up. They basically just said he's disqualified off the ballot. Well, this was too late to take his name off the ballot. So what happened? He got over 7,000 more votes than the incumbent, who's been in office 28 years, Susan Camp. Everybody knows she has signs all over the county, littering every street, every corner. And she still got 7,000.
50
Plus.
to 1. And as far as signs are concerned, you couldn't find a sign for Ryan Williams anywhere around. It was
Yeah.
very difficult.
Anyway, people voted for Ryan Williams anyway.
What is your
And
alternative
Ryan,
now?
does anybody have Ryan's statement? Ryan did put out a statement.
Yes, he
Well,
did.
it's on the DC Dems website.
It's on the DC
So go to
Dems.
dcdems.org.
I've explained it. I hope everybody understands it. I'm gonna turn it back over.
Go to dcdems.org and you'll see Ryan's statement there. He made a great statement.
But could he appeal to the Supreme Court?
I don't think so. But, and again, we talked about today that, look, we'll get a little analytical and we got into the weeds.
Yeah, we did.
So I know if you're outside of Douglas County watching, you're like, what? Who cares?
Hell,
But
yeah,
we
do
had
that.
to
It could
because,
happen to any state,
because
any
Ryan,
part of the county.
he won, and it even goes back to the Second Amendment stuff in that, you know, if we put the right judges, okay, in place, your local judges, appointed or elected, make some of the biggest impacts on your life on a day-to-day basis. And I guarantee you, if we got the right judges in place, cops will think 50 times before they ever harass you about having a gun, you know? So that's another way. When I say, right, so when I say voting will fix this stuff, that's what I mean when I'm talking about voting, even with the Second Amendment stuff. We get the right judges, because I guarantee you the judge, or somebody that were to go and have to see Ryan Williams for harassing some black man with a gun is going to be different from seeing Susan Kemp.
That
Okay?
same vein, though, is from the federal, the state.
From the federal, state, and local.
definitely
All
the
local
side.
government
Yes,
matters.
Yes, it matters, and people don't realize that. That's what the most important part of it is, because when we make decisions locally, it hits you right then and there.
Right then and there, the next day.
But when the federal guys do it, or the state guys do it, then you'll see it somewhere 6 months, 2 years, it trickle down before you see it and feel it, though. But when we make the decision that you can't drive down Chapel Hills, it's done.
And see, and that's something that's really, 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 really important to all of our voters that are watching this,
Yes.
or will catch it later. This is a local district commissioner
Yes.
telling you this.
Yes.
That's why it's important for you to vote. And not just on I'm just coming out for the presidential election. No, you have to vote for the state and local people also.
This commissioner right here makes more difference in
Yeah.
his district, which is one, immediately, as soon as the Board of Commissioners, as soon as that board meeting closed, you're affected like the next day, immediately. So, and Commissioner, I think you gotta leave.
I do. I gotta run, but I'm
See,
gonna hang around for
you about to go make a difference right now.
Yeah, we
But look, Commissioner, glad we came out, and look, you already know.
Thank you.
You're gonna be on
guys.
whole lot.
I appreciate you guys.
Congratulations again.
Congratulations.
Thank you guys again. All right.
All right, Maurice, I think you got the next one, and
Man,
then,
it
and
seems
we're gonna
like
close this.
hey, look, seems like I had the last one down. But that's okay, man. You know, we talked about a lot today. I mean, we talked national, we talked about local. Now we're gonna come to a specific one that's gonna affect us coming up in the next couple of weeks. We have a runoff election that's taking place with Herschel Walker and the incumbent Senator Warnock. This roundtable, I know, has a lot of thoughts about it. And I'm just gonna back out and say, what are your thoughts about this runoff election that's gonna take place? Now, I'll say this, neither Senator Warnock nor Herschel Walker got 2 million votes. They got real close, but neither one of them got that 51% that they needed to actually win. That's why we have a runoff. And we need every voter that's out there to go to the polls and vote your conscience, your choice, so we can have the proper individual in place. So what's your thoughts here, Jim?
What I want to do real quick is just, I want to get your thought first, before we talk about Warnock, on Herschel Walker. Okay, we got a round table of black men right here, okay?
Yeah.
And I want for people to know what we individually feel about this guy, good, bad, ugly, and different. And Bobby, you know, you always the animate, you know, hey, so you come with that fire. So I definitely want to start with you. Just Herschel Walker, forget about Warnock right now. What do you think about this guy?
Okay, let me go back a little bit. I'm a graduate of the University of Georgia.
Okay.
A real,
I'm a real graduate of the University of Georgia.
Could you show your badge? Could you show your certificate?
I'm a graduate of the University of Georgia, 1994, journalism. And this goes back for me to 1979, 1980. I grew up and became a huge University of Georgia football fan because of Herschel Walker. They won the national championship when I was in elementary school. I've got pictures of Herschel Walker in my basement.
Still?
His athletic prowess. Still. Now, that's from the sports perspective, okay? Let's make sure we separate the two, all right? That's from the sports perspective. He was a football hero of mine, all right? I am so incredibly disappointed in Herschel Walker. First of all, I knew he had no business running. You're listening to a clown that's all right? But however, you as a black man, all right, you're standing up here on these commercials that are disrespecting us, that are following the same tropes, same racist tropes about our people, the same stuff over and over again. I cannot, in good conscience, no matter what position I would hold as a football star, politician, whatever, I can't stand up there in good conscience behind those type of commercials and ask for your vote, because beyond all of that, Herschel, at the end of the day, you're still a black man.
Black man.
Beyond all of that, you're still a black man, okay? So to me, it's incredibly disappointing to see him run. Now, the funny thing about all this is if and when Herschel loses, Herschel's going to be dropped like a bad habit.
Yes.
From the Republican Party.
Yes.
Everything they're praising him about now, and I don't know if y'all heard the ridiculous rant that Lindsey Graham gave the other day. If you didn't hear it, I'm not going to repeat it because there's so much nonsense. But, you know, when you think about all this, if Herschel had run as a Democrat, for example, right? But he has no platform. He has no ideas what he's talking about doing. He's saying ridiculous stuff that doesn't make sense. China's bad air coming over here, take over. I mean, come on. All this stuff in his personal life, had he just remained, and I don't want to, I'm sorry, I know I'm
go ahead.
you know, had he just remained Herschel Walker, the football player, he could have spent the rest of his days and none of this stuff would have come up, right? In peace. But instead, when you run as a politician, all your mess is going to come up. Same thing. Drop Herman Cain like a rock. Soon as he start leading the polls, here come the allegations of sexual harassment. So they're going to do the same thing to Herschel. And I am watching the race in Nevada very closely because I sincerely hope that goes blue. And if it does, it takes the pressure off of Georgia. And those that I'm sure the ones that didn't vote for Herschel the first time, for the sake of power, will come in. I'm done just a second. For the sake of power, where I was concerned is that they come back and vote for him this time because it was proof that Herschel tied into Brian Kemp was not on the ballot for Republican voters. They separated themselves from Brian Kemp and between Herschel and Brian Kemp. The voter disparity is there. Yeah. So what I feared was if Nevada doesn't turn blue, and I'm hoping that it does.
It does, it will.
Okay, so that takes the pressure off of Georgia to not have the balance of power shift, but I still hope Herschel is not in the Senate representing the state of Georgia. That's
Yeah. No, what we're going to do, ma'am, we have time, we'll come to you.
Yeah.
But what we want to do is we really right now want to get a perspective from black men and what we think about Herschel Walker, and specifically so people can know what we think about him. Because around this table, because he's what we're what he looked like. So.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Go ahead.
In 1980 and 81, I was with the Marine Corps in the woods, listening to a transistor radio, listening to Georgia win the national championship. I was a Herschel Walker fan. I'm running around with a gun, people shooting at me, all that stuff. When I listened to Lindsey Graham do that thing with Herschel Walker, that took me back to, I'm from New Jersey, but it took me back to my mind of this rural South, of a slave owner selling a buck. He's a strong, big black man. He got muscles. He can work a field. You know what I'm saying? He can impregnate your women. You know, but he can't speak. Don't get him to talking because he don't talk about nothing. You know, Herschel Walker, they gassed him up. Lindsey Graham, Scott from South Carolina. Herschel Walker is walking around with grandiose delusions, thinking he won. He's talking about, Warnock didn't come prepared. He wiped you out. You didn't realize he got wiped out at the lectures, okay? But Herschel Walker just got him gassed up. And what they don't realize is that they're just trying to win the seat. If Herschel wins, he ain't gonna shut up. He's gonna do a Donald Trump and keep talking and keep dragging him down. You know what I'm saying? And again, once he loses, he's gonna be the next Kanye West. He's gonna be the next Ye. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna forget about him. And they're gonna dog him out. Unfortunately, Herschel's now become Ben Carson. You know, we love Ben Carson until he opened his mouth. Yep, that's right. You know what I'm saying? Now, no, all the things I read about Ben Carson, I don't even look into it anymore. Same with Herschel. Thank you.
Alan?
You're right. We are being used. The more things change, the more they tend to be the same. So we're reliving some of the past. We're supposed to be moving forward. And as again, talk about our education and everything, how we are being still used. Talk about Carson, yes. And Herschel Walker, there are many like him, and they're being used. It has happened in the past, and it will continue to happen. And we have to be able to deal with that change as we go along. Where educating people is so important because there are teachers here, there are kids growing up here. They're not really, they're teaching them in school, but they're not teaching them about what has happened in the past to try to understand so that we can move forward. We are being caught, set back here. Now, if you take students today, you find a little white boy selling on this corner with his little stand, making his money. He have to buy his own car. He have to do everything, even though his parents has it, right? Look at the little black boy. We have to educate them how to spend $1, how to save $1, where to spend your money, where it's more effective, how when you spend your money in your community, what are you doing when you spend your money in your community, right? How are you building up your community and not going outside? So charity begins where? At home. This is where we have to start. Education is so important for these kids coming up today. I was so impressed to see a lot of young students canvassing with us in Douglas County. I felt good because they have to carry the mantle. And some of them, even though in college, if they're not really taught properly, like Herschel Walker, we have a lot of black athletes who are unsuccessful, even though they have made it. Boxers, football, basketball players, but they didn't know how to manage themselves. They didn't know how to manage their money. This community has to be strong, and we, through education, has changed this whole community in Douglas County. Because, as I said, when I came here in 1993, I left a third world island, independent from Great Britain, and then came where we were voted with a machine. Came to New York back in the 1980s. I was a pallbearer, and we voted with machines. I came to Georgia, and I was voting on a piece of paper and dropping it in a box. Now, I realized that the media is capitalism, and the news is out there only for the chosen few who wants to get at it, because of the fact that if you have CNN and all these different things, if you are out in the rural areas, all you have is a little antenna on your house, you can't afford to buy cable, you can't afford to buy this and that, so how do you get that communication? And a lot of people say, well, these people have phones and they have technology, but they don't have the mind to use it. You see? So you can have all the, I see teachers having problems with their phones. Teachers having problems with the computers because they've been teaching for so long in a certain way. And now they can't, they're too old to adapt to this change. How do we get our people to understand change and to deal with it? That is very important too. And we have to educate people about our community. educating our communities about the issues and the changes that are taking place in our everyday life here.
Okay, Maurice, before you close it out, I'm going to, we got a question in the audience.
Please do. I wanted to make sure
But
you
yeah,
had
you
a
gotta close
comment.
it out. Yeah, I'm gonna just do a quick comment. It ain't gonna take long.
Sure, absolutely.
I mean, for me, I just think that the pink elephant in the room, okay? The pink elephant in the room is, I just believe that white people, especially white women, just really need to be ashamed of themselves for voting for this guy. I'm just talking about for real. That is just straight up, just, I don't know any way else to say it, because that's who's voting for this man. And I do believe that there is, you know, there's this nostalgia about some antebellum South that I think that a certain group of, look, the black vote went down in Georgia some 6%, okay, from 2018. But I think it went up like 2 or 3% for the white vote. That's because of Herschel Walker. And I believe that there is a certain number, 30, 35%, I don't know what the number is, of people who just really want this nostalgia and want this antebellum South crap. And I think that Herschel Walker, they see a gateway to it. And I think that he is motivating a lot of people. That's all I really got to say. And
Interesting concept. I didn't think of it that way. And we have a question from the audience. I want to take it.
Yeah, well, I wanted to say, it's worse than that. Ever since Barack Obama was, not the first or second time, he was taken seriously. They didn't take him serious the first time. They thought it was gonna be a Herman Cain, boom, 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 he'll embarrass us, and then they'll go away. Didn't go away.
Not
Second
with
time.
education.
Okay, you know, Donald Trump never got over being embarrassed by Barack.
Correct.
That's right.
And that the journalist,
That's right.
he never got over it. He picked the worst candidates that he could find of our race to run, to see, this is the best that they got.
Right.
They could have picked anybody else.
it's called white lash.
Yes, they could, anybody else, a black person.
So, Mickey,
Okay,
what
why
you
did it go there?
so Mickey, what you're saying is Herschel is just a Trump handpicked candidate just to say, hey, let's throw somebody out there, and that's kind of how a lot
That's
of
how
that's
all
a lot of that's how a lot of
candidates
us feel. They picked Herschel Walker based on two things. One, he was a black man running against Senator Warnock. Number two, he was the Heisman Trophy winner in the state of Georgia at the University of Georgia. Let's use that little bit of popularity to see if we can beat him.
Yeah.
So, with that being the case, that's how a lot of us see him. Okay, he was a Heisman Trophy winner. Great. He's a black man. Great. What else does he have? He has no substance. He has nothing with him that makes him a viable candidate. And see, here's the difference between Herschel and Reverend Warnock. Reverend Warnock was in the civil rights game talking about politics prior to him being elected. Where was Herschel? I hear crickets. I hear crickets.
In Texas.
In Texas. Exactly. That's the difference. Hey, we got to move on to our next or last question or wrap it up.
Yeah, because
Rodney,
one of the most
yeah.
important things
Yeah.
is I did want to get quick opinion, guys, because Reverend Warnock is still in this thing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get just a quick opinion. No, we're going to have to time it. No more than 30 seconds for each one of us.
Exactly.
What should Warnock do over the next 3 weeks? Just in a 30-second little blurb, what should he do over the next 3 weeks to win that runoff? And Bobby, we'll start with you.
Quickly, again.
What should Warnock do?
Yeah, again, as I said last time, as I said to him, I think they need to fight harder. Educate people on the issues and what you're actually voting for. That's what he needs to focus on, in my opinion. Continue to fight for that. Continue to show, here's what I'm voting on. Here's what I voted for since I've been in office, and here are the things I'm running my platform on, and compare that to what Herschel is talking about, and you'll find it should have never been this close to begin with.
Alan.
Warnock is a guinea pig. And if we don't work hard, we beat Purdue, right? In the last election.
Kelly Lobson.
right?
Kelly
Left.
Love. Kelly Love.
Right, we beat him. So therefore,
Right.
if we go out there and vote, we'll get what we want. Our democracy is still a big challenge, and the more we have to overcome it, will be better for us. So we have to really go out there and exercise our right for democracy. That's the key.
We need
Okay.
you guys
Okay.
Okay.
y'all to put that out there.
30 seconds. What should Warnock do over these next 3
Stick
weeks?
to the issues. Don't get involved with all the, you put your wife and all that stuff so much that you don't, like Bobby said, this is what I did, Herschel, what you do. This is what I did, Herschel, what you do. Keep saying that, and let Herschel try to defend himself, and he'll just start falling off the wayside. Stick to the issues.
He has nothing to defend
Maurice?
but
Also, too,
football.
the other thing I think he needs to do is say, hey, look, these are things that I voted on to help you. These are the things that the Republicans voted against to not help you.
Right.
Do you want somebody that's going to help you or somebody that's not going to help you? Stick
I
to
hear
the
that.
issues. Stick to what makes sense for the people, and then he should win. And he's got to also figure out a way to get to people to say, look, I need you to come back out and vote for me. That's a message he's got to get out to.
Yeah. I think over the next 3 weeks, because it's a very short period of time, I think that Warnock should, since Herschel Walker brought up about his resume compared to Obama's, I think that Warnock should break out his resume and for the next 3 weeks and just compare it to Herschel Walker's, along with everything else everybody else said. Okay. So,
Wasn't there another Heisman Trophy winner that folks don't like to talk about too much?
OJ?
you know, we kind of probably leave that to the outside, agencies, the outside of the PACs to do that. The last thing, gentlemen, is, and again, about 30 seconds. What are your thoughts on what the Democratic Party at all levels should do to increase the black male vote? Because that's what we are. We're Black Men's Roundtable, right? And I think, for instance, Raphael Warnock got something like 96% of the black men vote, but then it dropped down to like 85% for Stacey Abrams. So there's about a 10% gap there. What do we want to tell the Democratic Party that they should do to increase the black men vote, okay, about 10% over the next 2 years for 2024? And Bobby, since we're doing it all day, we'll start with you. About 30 seconds, because we really.
I'll be brief. First of all, again, tell the truth. Tell what you've done. And I'm going to put the onus also on black men, period, because I've heard some ridiculous reasons why some have not come out to vote, okay? And that angers me. So you have to prioritize, first of all, what is important to you first. Stop thinking just federal, and you're not thinking state and local, all right? But you have to educate the voters on what's at stake. And then I'm gonna put the onus again on black voters, black men voters specifically, to come out and vote and stop with the excuses. I'm tired of hearing my vote don't count and all that stuff. Tired of hearing that. If you're paying attention to any of the elections nationally, you'll see how razor thin the vote is right now in determining the outcome of the balance of power. So all the excuses, I'm tired of hearing that and being distracted by other things. Educate the people on what's at stake, and I'm gonna put the onus again on black men to come out and vote for what is important and stop listening to the nonsense and the propaganda.
That's right.
Be citizens.
I think of three important things to improve our lives. We must have three important things. One, democracy. Two, freedom. We talk about voters' right. It's not a right. It's the freedom to choose and not the right to choose. And justice for all. If we all think about those three important issues that have to be, most of all, getting the majority of people to focus on freedom, justice, and democracy, this country will be the leader of the world. And that's what I look forward for each and every one of us, to tell each and every friend, family, vote. I don't care who you vote for, vote, and I know you'll take the right choice, and vote for those three important issues: freedom, justice, and democracy. Okay?
Okay,
Kevin?
yeah. Some of them are ignorant, some of them are ridiculous with their thoughts. But you can't come at them or come at us at the 10,000-foot level. You gotta come on down. Come on down to where we are and tell us, okay, I understand your opinion, as crazy as it may sound, but this is how it's gotta work. This is how it's gonna work. Don't just push us under the table. You gotta find out where they are. If it's a gambling house, if it's the casino, wherever they are, you gotta come down to their level and speak to them, not with polysyllabic words, but straight English that they can understand to figure out what's going on.
And that's what I was going with Maurice.
Oh, no.
No, I got to close. That's you're right.
And you are absolutely right. I found that out, I mean, this was many, many years ago. This one guy said, how do you reach these guys? I said, you go where they are. You know, it's just like trying to, if you're a Christian and you're trying to convert somebody, don't go in there and preach Jesus to them. You go in there and talk to them about they're hungry. They don't have a job. You talk to them about those things first, then you talk about, you know, what you really want to talk to them about, because you're now talking to them at their level. The other thing too is we as black men got to educate each other. We got to talk to each other and say, hey man, look, what's your thought about, oh man, I ain't got time for that voting stuff, because wait a minute, yes you do. Because if you don't vote, you might end up like, and we have to tell each other that. We have to. I met a guy on the street as I was canvassing a few years ago, and he said exactly that. Oh man, I ain't got time for that voting stuff, man, because you know, I'm out here trying to get it. I'm trying to get my hustle on. I said, well, if you don't go vote and you don't do it the right way, you won't have a hustle to get it. And he just looked at me like, well, why not? I said, because your one vote does matter. Because think about it. If I give you $1 and 1,000 other people give you $1, you now got $1,000. That's the same concept as a vote. And the guy looked at me and said, I never thought of it that way. So we got to just talk to each other, man, and try to educate each other, encourage each other, and put some peer pressure on each other.
You have a question?
A lot of people don't, yes. It's only the presidential. It is not, and it's all of the elections, and we got to keep pushing it. Yep.
Okay,
I
before
would
we
say-
close it out, we do have a question. Maurice, if you can take the microphone and to the brother right here in the orange,
I really don't have a question.
or a comment. Okay.
A quick comment, because I know y'all trying to close it out. And as a black man, I really, first let me say my name is Walker Hudson from the Carroll County Democrats. Brian Hager asked me to come here. I wasn't planning to speak, but we're going to this black man thing. I think the narrative of black men not voting is it's a little bit harsh on us, you know, because 84% did come out and vote correctly this time, you know. Secondly, to get them to come out, I talked to a lot of black men out there in rural Carroll County, and you have to educate them because they have such a distrust of the system. They've been abused in schools, colleges, on the job. Their whole life, they have a huge distrust of the man and the system. And that distrust leads them to not want to confront and hold them accountable because they feel they're not going to get truth out of them anyway, you know. And I really appreciate you guys doing this. And I know you said once a month.
Oh, we're not going nowhere.
Hey,
We're not going to pander.
Yeah, you got to be on it.
No, we're not gonna pander.
Doing this, you need to do this every week, doing the runoff.
I know, right?
To educate.
Believe me, my mind is going 1,000 miles an
educate
hour.
them, because you have to get in them corners, in them casinos, at the crap tables where they have playing
Yes.
craps at, in the barbershops, in the church. You have to be, because black men are everywhere.
Everywhere.
You know, we are not. They try to put black culture as one certain thing. You know, we have college graduates, we have business owners, we have hustlers, we have black men who really don't do anything. We know this. You know what I'm saying? You got to catch them all, and we're 13% of the nation, maybe 14% now. So our vote, we have to capture all we can. And beating them up, like I used to 2 years ago, why you not voting? By beating them up, that's not going to get you nowhere. it's not gonna get you anywhere with them. But talking to them and educating them slowly and knowing where they at on that process, because it was a time where we didn't vote the way we vote. We weren't such as passionate as we are about this right now. So you gotta remember yourself when you was that guy when you're speaking to them, and that's all I wanted to say. Because my brothers get beat up so much, and I remember beating them up a whole lot, and I'm not doing that. I'm trying to pull them in, you know. So I just want to say we have to educate and we have to love them because it's tough out here.
Okay, before you go, I want to ask you one more thing. You say what brought you? How did you come from DeKalb?
Well, I'm from Carroll County. I'm the third vice out there.
Oh, Carroll County. I thought you said
and
okay.
Brian Hager, I think he's our vice chair first.
Okay.
Vice first. He asked me to come today.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to know. So Brian, actually,
I
appreciate you
guys,
coming.
Appreciate you guys doing this.
Yep. The Netta got a question.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're way over time, people.
Yes, thank you. Actually, this gentleman pretty much asked the question I was going to ask. I had an experience on Friday where I ran into a young black man and we started talking about voting. And he was like, well, you know, I don't trust Warnock. I don't trust Walker. I don't trust any of them. He said, so I'm just really going to bother to vote. My aunt and my uncle get on it, but I'm just not going to do it. So I tried my best to talk him off the ledge. I said, well, I gave him the whole spiel that you talked about earlier. So my specific question is, what can I, as a woman or a black woman, say when I encounter young black men on this, to reach them, to have them receive what I have to say? I mean, you guys can talk to each other, and they will listen to you, obviously, before they'll listen to me. But I'm in that situation where I'm encountering him, and I did the best I could. But I would like to know, what can I say that he will receive from me to know the importance of him getting out to vote, to get him not so disillusioned as he is? Obviously, he was disillusioned. He may have been in his 20s, mid to late 20s.
That's a good. Let me tackle it real quick. That's a good question, Donetta, and I think that one of the things that you can do as a black woman, like you're saying, is that if you encounter that young black man or that black man in any kind of way, and they start to get pushback or whatever because they're not receiving you very well. The good thing is in your phone, you got a whole bunch because of the access that you have access to a whole lot of black men who can really get to him. I would say, don't don't push yourself too much, but just hook him up with one of us or other black men, and like we say in life, right? It takes a black man to raise a black man. Period. I mean, I appreciate the mothers and everything that they do, but I don't have a son. I got 2 daughters, and I couldn't have raised them to be women because I'm not one. But I can just be a good father, and I think you can be a good woman to him. Right. But if he starts to push back, just use your phone.
And I just want to add to what Maurice said, and this gentleman just said to you about coming down to the level. Before you could even try to convince anybody about anything, try to find out who he is, what is his problems, what he's going through. Get a relationship before you can go beyond that to help that person. That's what I feel is the best way to reach out to somebody. Feel their pain, understand what's going on in their life and why they feel the way they feel, and then you might be able to help them go the direction you want them to go to.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
This has been a good one today.
I'm going to give the camera a round of applause. Wow. And go ahead.
One quick question. I was wondering, and we always have these intellectual brothers up there talking. Why don't we invite somebody from the crib?
No, what I can tell you, Kevin, is that, and we have a whole slate. Maurice knows we have a whole slate. We're going to be on location. We're going to be going into barbershops. We're going to talk to bartenders. Okay. But we are going where the people are going to meet the people where they are. So that whole slate of shows is coming up, and so oh yeah, exactly. We're going to be talking to all kind of different black men, and like I said,
they may not even want to give us their name. We don't have to have them. We don't have to have their name,
So we're going to be doing that.
Yeah.
But anyway. But anyway, I want to give the round of applause. And look, to our loyal viewers out there, we appreciate it. We know today was an absolute long show. We'll usually go somewhere between an hour and 15 minutes. But, after the elections, we expected it to be, a long show. So with that, on behalf of our chair, Ingrid Landis Davis, and on behalf of of the panel and of my co-moderator, Maurice Hurry. I appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate you guys coming out. And until next time, keep the faith. And we see you, King. We see you.
We see you.